The world has been misled by false images of luxury and excess surrounding Pope Leo XIV. Today we reveal the unvarnished truth. Pope Leo XIV lives a life of humility, simplicity, and profound dedication. This is not just a story about a man, but a powerful lesson on leadership, sacrifice, and the real meaning of greatness. Stay with us, because what you're about to learn will challenge everything you thought you knew and inspire you to see life differently. If this truth moved you, hit subscribe now, leave your thoughts below. And join us for more eye-opening stories. Part 1. The real daily life of Pope Leo XIV. At first glance, the world's imagination paints the Pope's daily life as one of gilded luxury, marble halls, golden thrones, endless feasts, and a retinue of servants attending to every whim. But step quietly behind the Vatican's storied walls and you will discover a reality that is both humbler and far more inspiring than any rumor or tabloid headline could suggest. Dawn in the Vatican. Pope Leo XIV's day begins long before most of Rome stirs. At 4:45 a.m., while the city is still cloaked in darkness, and the only sounds are the distant bells and the soft sweep of brooms in St. Peter's Square, a small lamp flickers on in a modest apartment inside the Casa Santa Marta, the Vatican guest house, where Pope Leo XIV has chosen to reside. Unlike the palatial apostolic palace with its ornate ceilings and centuries-old tapestries, Casa Santa Marta is simple, almost monastic. The Pope's private quarters consist of a small bedroom, a plain wooden desk, a crucifix, and a bookshelf lined with worn prayer books and handwritten notes. There are no gold fixtures, no velvet drapes, no priceless paintings. The furniture is functional and the decor is sparse. Before the sun rises, Pope Leo XIV is already awake, kneeling in silent prayer. He spends the first hour of his day in contemplation and meditation, seeking guidance and strength for the responsibilities ahead. His prayers are privat offered in the quiet solitude of his room, with only the gentle glow of a single lamp and the soft rustle of turning pages as company. A simple breakfast at 6:00 a.m. The Pope quietly makes his way to the small communal dining room. There is no private chef, no elaborate spread. Breakfast is modest: a cup of black coffee, a slice of bread, perhaps a little fruit or plain yogurt. He often eats alone or with a few early-rising priests and staff members, exchanging simple greetings and a few words of encouragement. Those who have witnessed these mornings are struck by the Pope's humility and warmth. He serves himself, clears his own dishes, and thanks the kitchen staff by name. There are no formalities, just the easy camaraderie of people who share a common mission. The work of a shepherd. By 7:00 a.m., Pope Leo XIV is already at work. His schedule is rigorous, filled with meetings, correspondence, and pastoral duties. Unlike the image of a distant monarch, the Pope is deeply involved in the daily life of the Church. He reads letters from the faithful, hundreds every week, many of them from people in crisis or despair. He responds personally to as many as he can, often writing late into the night. He meets with cardinals, bishops, and lay leaders, always emphasizing listening and dialogue over commands or decrees. Vatican staff describe him as a leader who values every voice, who asks questions, and listens intently, who seeks consensus rather than imposing his will. His office is orderly but unadorned: no gold pens, no ornate stationery, just stacks of papers, a well-used Bible, and a simple wooden cross. Walking the halls, unlike many of his predecessors, Pope Leo XIV prefers to walk the halls of the Vatican rather than be chauffeured in a private car. He is often seen greeting Swiss guards and maintenance workers, stopping to chat with gardeners, tending the small Vatican plots, or sharing a joke with the cleaning staff. He knows many by name and remembers details about the IR families. Within the Vatican grounds, he often uses the small electric shuttle, essentially a glorified golf cart when time is short, but he avoids any display of privilege or separation. When visiting Vatican offices, he knocks and waits to be invited in, never assuming special treatment. Mass in the chapel at 7:30 a.m. The Pope celebrates Mass in the small chapel of Casa Santa Marta. The congregation is never large, usually a handful of Vatican employees visiting clergy or pilgrims. The liturgy is simple, the homily heartfelt and direct. Pope Leo XIV's preaching is known for its clarity and compassion. He speaks not as a distant theologian, but as a pastor who understands the struggles of ordinary people. After Mass, he often lingers to greet those present, offering a handshake, a blessing, or a few words of encouragement. There are no cameras, no staged photo opportunities, just genuine human connection. Simple meals. Simple living lunch is taken in the same communal dining room as Bray Archfast. The menu is plain pasta vegetables, a little fish, or chicken fruit for dessert. The Pope eats what the staff eats, never requesting special dishes or imported delicacies. He is known to enjoy the occasional treat, an espresso or a small pastry, but always in moderation. He often invites guests to join him for lunch, visiting priests, nuns, laypeople, or sometimes a Vatican employee celebrating a birthday or work anniversary. These meals are marked by laughter, storytelling, and a sense of family. The Pope listens more than he speaks, asking about people's lives, their families, their joys and sorrows. Afternoon service and study. Afternoons are devoted to study, writing, and acts of service. Pope Leo XIV is a lifelong scholar, and he spends several hours each day reading theology, history, and current events. He writes homilies, encyclicals, and personal letters, always striving to connect the Church's ancient wisdom with the realities of modern life. He also makes time for acts of charity. On many afternoons, he visits Vatican charities, soup kitchens, or shelters for the homeless. He goes without an entourage, often accompanied by just one or two aides. He listens to the stories of the poor, offers prayers, and sometimes serves meals himself. He insists on no media coverage, believing that true service is done quietly without seeking attention. Evening routine. By 6 or 8 p.m., the Pope returns to his quarters for a simple supper, usually soup bread, and a little cheese or fruit. He spends time in quiet reflection, reading scripture or praying the rosary. He often writes in his journal, recording thoughts, prayers, and intentions for the day. In the evenings, he may take a short walk in the Vatican gardens, enjoying the peace and solitude. He sometimes meets with close advisors or old friends, but these gatherings are informal and unpretentious. Before retiring, Pope Leo XIV spends another hour in prayer, lifting up the needs of the world, the Church, and those who have asked for his intercession. He goes to bed early, around 9:30 p.m., rising again before dawn to begin another day of service. Personal touches and small acts. Those who work closely with Pope Leo XIV are unanimous in their admiration for his humility and approachability. He writes thank you notes by hand, remembers birthdays, and sends small gifts or messages to those in need. He is known to visit sick employees in the hospital, to comfort grieving families, and to offer quiet support to those struggling with doubt or despair. He wears simple white cassocks, often mended and reused, and his shoes are sturdy and well worn. He has refused offers of designer clothing or expensive gifts, preferring to donate such items to charity. His apartment is decorated with handmade crafts and gifts from children, not priceless art or antiques. Rejecting luxury, perhaps most striking, is Pope Leo XIV's conscious rejection of luxury. When he was elected, he chose not to move into the lavish papal apartments, citing a desire for simplicity and solidarity with the poor. He has sold or donated many gifts given to the papacy, redirecting funds to support refugees, the homeless, and victims of war and disaster. He has spoken often about the dangers of materialism and the importance of living simply. The Church must be a home for the poor, he has said, and her shepherds must live as servants, not princes. His example is not just words, it is lived daily in every choice he makes. The real picture. This is the real daily life of Pope Leo XIV, not one of opulence or indulgence, but of humility, discipline, and service. He rises before dawn, eats simple meals, lives in modest quarters, and spends his days in prayer work and acts of love. He is not surrounded by luxury, but by the quiet dignity of a life devoted to others. For those who look beyond the headlines and rumors, the truth is clear. Pope Leo XIV's greatness is not found in gold or marble, but in the small daily acts of kindness, humility, and sacrifice that define his every day. Part 2. Debunking the myths No palaces, no lavish spending. In a world dominated by viral headlines and sensational social media posts, it's easy for myths to take root and grow. When it comes to the Pope, the leader of the Catholic Church, these myths often swirl around images of unimaginable wealth, golden palaces, and an existence far removed from the realities of ordinary people. But how much of this is true and how much is simply fiction, fueled by misunderstanding, outdated stereotypes, or deliberate misinformation? The viral rumors scroll through any social media platform, and you'll find posts claiming that the Pope lives in a palace filled with priceless art, wears custom-made robes worth thousands of dollars, and dines on gourmet meals prepared by a personal chef. Some memes even show photoshopped images of the Pope surrounded by gold luxury cars and opulent banquets. Headlines like Pope's Golden Throne, exposed, or inside the Vatican's billion-dollar lifestyle attract millions of clicks. These stories are often accompanied by dramatic music, grainy images of Vatican treasures, and out-of-context quotes. The narrative is clear: the Pope is a king among kings living in unimaginable luxury while preaching humility. But the reality is very different. The truth about the papal residence. Let's start with the most persistent myth that the Pope lives in the Apostolic Palace, a sprawling complex of lavish apartments, ballrooms, and private chapels. While it's true that previous popes resided in the Apostolic Palace, Pope Leo XIV made a conscious decision to break with this tradition. Upon his election, Leo XIV chose to live in the Casa Santa Marta, a modest guest house within the Vatican grounds. His apartment is small, with a simple bedroom, a desk, and a private bathroom. There are no marble halls, no golden chandeliers, no private art galleries. The furniture is basic, the decor minimal. Even the windows look out not onto grand courtyards, but onto a quiet internal garden. Why did he make this choice? Pope Leo XIV has explained that he wanted to live simply in solidarity with the poor and the ordinary people of the world. He has said a shepherd should smell like his sheep, meaning that a true leader must share in the lives of those he serves. No private chef, no gourmet feasts. Another common myth is that the Pope enjoys gourmet meals prepared by a team of world-class chefs. In reality, the meals at Casa Santa Marta are simple and communal. The Pope eats what the staff and guests eat: pasta, vegetables, bread, fruit, and occasionally fish or chicken. There are no elaborate menus or imported delicacies. On many days, the Pope serves himself from the buffet line, clears his own dishes, and thanks the kitchen staff personally. When guests are invited to join him, they are often surprised by the informality and warmth of the meal. There is laughter, storytelling, and a sense of family, not the stiff formality of a royal court. The papal wardrobe, humble and reused images of the Pope in ornate vestments, are often used to suggest a life of luxury. But these vestments are not personal possessions. They are part of the Church's liturgical tradition, worn only during specific ceremonies. On a daily basis, Pope Leo XIV wears a simple white cassock, often the same one for years, mended as needed. His shoes are sturdy and practical, not designer brands. He has repeatedly refused offers of expensive clothing or accessories. When luxury gifts are sent to him, he donates them to charity or auctions them to raise money for the poor. He has even been seen wearing a plain wooden cross instead of the traditional gold pectoral cross. Vatican treasures, not the Pope's property. Another source of confusion is the wealth of art and treasures housed within the Vatican museums. While it's true that the Vatican holds priceless works of art, Michelangelo's frescoes, Raphael's paintings, ancient manuscripts, these are not the personal property of the Pope. They belong to the Church and are preserved for the benefit of all humanity. The Pope does not have a private gallery or unrestricted access to these treasures. In fact, Pope Leo XIV has been a strong advocate for opening the Vatican's collections to the public, supporting educational programs and free admission days for students and families. Financial transparency and accountability. In recent years, the Vatican has faced scrutiny over its finances. Pope Leo XIV has made financial transparency a central part of his papacy. He has ordered independent audits, published annual financial reports, and implemented strict controls to prevent misuse of church funds. Contrary to rumors, the Pope does not have a personal fortune. He receives a modest stipend for personal expenses, most of which he donates to charity. He has no private bank accounts, no luxury investments, and no secret stash of wealth. No luxury cars or private jets. Another persistent myth is that the Pope travels in luxury cars or private jets. In reality, Pope Leo XIV is known for his preference for modest transportation. Within the Vatican, he often walks or uses a small electric vehicle. For official travel, he uses standard vehicles provided by the Vatican fleet, usually small sedans or minivans. When traveling abroad, the Pope flies on commercial airlines, often sitting in a section reserved for the papal delegation, but not in first class. He has spoken out against the use of luxury vehicles, urging church leaders to set an example of simplicity. Rejecting lavish gifts, as the spiritual leader of over 1 billion Catholics, the Pope receives countless gifts from around the world. Some are valuable works of art, jewelry, or handcrafted items. Pope Leo XIV has established a clear policy. Valuable gifts are catalogued and placed in the Vatican archives or museums, not kept for personal use. Many items are auctioned with proceeds going to support charitable works. He has also been known to give away personal gifts, such as his own coat watch or rosary, to those in need. Stories abound of the Pope quietly slipping a small gift to a homeless person or a struggling family, always away from the cameras. Fact-checking the headlines. Let's address some of the most viral headlines. Pope's Golden Throne exposed. The so-called Golden Throne is a centuries-old ceremonial chair used only on rare occasions. It is not the Pope's personal seat, and he spends almost no time in it. Most days, Pope Leo XIV sits on a plain wooden chair at his desk or in the chapel, inside the Vatican's billion-dollar lifestyle. The Vatican's wealth is largely tied up in art, historical buildings, and charitable foundations. The operational budget is modest compared to most governments or large organizations. The Pope himself lives simply and has no access to personal wealth. Pope spotted in designer robes. Liturgical vestments are made by religious communities or artisans, often donated or reused for decades. Daily attire is plain and practical. Testimonies from Vatican staff, those who work closest to Pope Leo XIV, are unanimous in their accounts. He is a man of humility, discipline, and generosity. Vatican staff describe how he greets everyone with a smile, remembers birthdays, and thanks workers for their service. He is known to visit sick employees in the hospital, write personal notes of encouragement, and quietly support those facing hardship. A Swiss guard recalls, "He always asks about my family back home. He treats us not as bodyguards but as brothers." A kitchen worker shares, "He eats what we eat, thanks us every day, and never asks for anything special." A Vatican housekeeper says his room is the simplest I've ever cleaned. He keeps only what he needs. The power of simplicity. Pope Leo XIV's choices are not about appearances, but about conviction. He believes that the Church must lead by example, living the gospel values of humility, stewardship, and solidarity with the poor. He has said the world does not need more princes, it needs more servants. His rejection of luxury is not a publicity stunt. It is a daily practice rooted in his faith and his understanding of leadership. He has inspired bishops, priests, and laypeople around the world to embrace a simpler, more authentic way of life. Why the myths persist? So why do the myths of papal luxury persist? Partly it is the legacy of centuries past when the Church did wield great temporal power and wealth. Partly it is the allure of scandal stories of hypocrisy and excess attract attention even when they are not true. And partly it is a misunderstanding of the role and responsibilities of the Pope. But the facts are clear. Pope Leo XIV lives, simply serves humbly, and rejects the trappings of power and privilege. Seeing the truth, to truly understand the Pope's life, one must look beyond the headlines, the memes, and the viral rumors. The real story is not one of palaces and luxury, but of a man who rises before dawn, eats simple meals, and spends his days in prayer service and love for others. This is the truth that matters, not because it makes for dramatic headlines, but because it offers hope and inspiration in a world hungry for authenticity. Part 3. Personal choices. Humility and sacrifice. The The life of Pope Leo XIV is not simply the result of circumstance or inherited tradition. It is a tapestry woven from thousands of conscious, sometimes difficult personal choices, each one a quiet act of humility, each one a small sacrifice that shapes the character of a leader who has chosen to walk the path of service rather than privilege. The decision to live. Simply, when Pope Leo XIV was elected, the world watched with anticipation as he faced his first major decision where to live. The Apostolic Palace, with its frescoed ceilings, marble corridors, and centuries of papal history, stood ready to receive its new occupant. For generations, this palace had been the symbolic heart of papal P-hour. But Leo XIV surprised everyone. He declined the palace's private apartments and instead chose a modest room in the Casa Santa Marta, the Vatican guest house. His explanation was simple but profound. I want to live among people, not above them. This decision was not made for the cameras or for public approval. Those who knew him from his days as a bishop recall that he had always preferred small apartments, lived without personal staff, and often cooked his own meals. The Casa Santa Marta offered him proximity to the daily life of the Vatican priests, workers, visitors, and pilgrims, rather than the isolation of a royal residence. The power of plain clothing. The Pope's wardrobe is another reflection of his humility. While the world sees him in ceremonial vestments during major liturgies, his daily attire is a simple white cassock, often the same one for years, carefully mended by Vatican seamstresses. He has refused offers of designer cassocks and shoes, preferring sturdy, practical footwear that he wears until they are well worn. A well-known story among Vatican staff tells of the time a famous Italian shoemaker sent the Pope a pair of custom-made red leather shoes, a gift that would have delighted many. Pope Leo XIV thanked the shoemaker graciously, then quietly donated the shoes to a local charity auction, using the proceeds to buy winter coats for homeless families in Rome. His pectoral cross is not gold or encrusted with jewels, but a simple silver cross he has worn since his days as a parish priest. When asked about it, he smiles and says, "The cross is a symbol of sacrifice, not decoration." Choosing public transport and walking within the Vatican Pope. Leo XIV is often seen walking between buildings, greeting gardeners, security guards, and maintenance staff by name. When he must travel farther, he chooses an electric shuttle or a small Fiat, rather than the traditional papal limousine. On several occasions, he has been spotted riding the Vatican bus with other employees, exchanging stories and laughter. During his visits to parishes and charities in Rome, he prefers to arrive unannounced and without a large entourage. He has been known to take the city's tram or metro accompanied by just one or two aides. These moments are rarely photographed, but for those who witness them, they are unforgettable. A Vatican security officer recalls, he insists on being close to people. He says, "How can I be a shepherd if I never walk among my sheep?" donating gifts and wealth as the spiritual leader of over 1 billion people. Pope Leo XIV receives countless gifts, works of art, fine wines, jewelry, and even cash donations. His policy is unwavering. All valuable gifts are catalogued and either donated to charity auctioned for humanitarian causes or placed in the Vatican archives for public benefit. He is known for his spontaneous generosity. On a winter evening in Rome, he encountered a shivering homeless man near St. Peter's Square. Without hesitation, the Pope removed his own coat and draped it over the man's shoulders. The story spread quietly among Vatican staff, who later discovered that the Pope had also left a note with the man offering prayers and a blessing. He often gives away personal items, a watch, a rosary, a book to those in need, always with humility and without drawing attention to himself. His acts of charity are not staged for publicity. They are expressions of a deep conviction that true wealth is found in giving, not receiving. Stories from those who know him. The impact of Pope Leo XIV's choices is best understood through the stories of those who encounter him daily. Maria, a Vatican kitchen worker. He always greets us by name and asks about our families. When my son was sick, he sent a handwritten note and a small gift. He eats what we eat, never asks for anything special, and always thanks us for our work. Brother Paolo, a gardener. One morning I saw him kneeling in the garden, picking up trash left by visitors. He smiled and said, "The earth is God's gift. We must care for it together." He often stops to admire the flowers or ask about the trees. Sister Lucia, a nurse at a Vatican clinic. When the Pope visits the sick, he does so quietly without photographers. He holds hands, listens to worries and prays with each person. He once stayed for hours with a dying woman, comforting her and her family. Father Miguel, a young priest, I was nervous meeting him for the first time. He put me at ease with a joke and asked about my parents. He told me, "Never forget where you come from. The people you serve are your family." Living with less Pope. Leo XIV's apartment is a study in simplicity. There are no antiques, no luxury decor, no private art collection. The walls are adorned with children's drawings, gifts from refugees, and photographs of his family and friends. His bookshelf contains well-worn Bibles, spiritual classics, and letters from people around the world. He uses a basic mobile phone, avoids social media, and writes most of his correspondence by hand. When asked about technology, he says, "Tools are useful, but they should never replace real conversation." He has refused to install air conditioning in his room, preferring to open a window or use a fan. He says it reminds him of his childhood and keeps him mindful of those who cannot afford such comforts. Sacrificing comfort for solidarity. Pope Leo XIV's choices are not always easy. He has spoken openly about the loneliness and fatigue that sometimes accompany his role. Yet he believes that sacrifice is essential for true leadership. "If I am comfortable while others suffer, I am not following Christ," he has said. He fasts regularly, especially during Lent and Advent, and donates the money he saves on meals to charity. He has chosen not to take vacations to luxury retreats, instead spending his holidays visiting the sick, prisoners, or communities affected by disaster. His example has inspired others in the Vatican to adopt simpler, live-ease styles. Several cardinals have moved into smaller apartments, donated personal collections, or increased their charitable giving. Vatican employees report a new spirit of camaraderie and purpose rooted in the Pope's daily witness. Rejecting privilege. Embracing service. Perhaps the most striking aspect of Pope Leo XIV's leadership is his rejection of privilege. He insists on equal treatment for all, regardless of rank or status. He has abolished certain ceremonial titles, simplified papal ceremonies, and encouraged bishops and priests to live among their people. He has said, "The Church is not a palace. It is a field hospital, a family, a community of servants." This vision shapes every aspect of his life, from his personal choices to his public ministry. When asked why he lives this way, the Pope often quotes St. Francis of Assisi preach, "The gospel at all times, when necessary use words." For Pope Leo XIV, actions speak louder than sermons. The ripple effect. The Pope's humility and sacrifice have not gone unnoticed. Around the world, Catholics and non-Catholics alike have been moved by his example. Stories of his kindness circulate in parishes, schools, and families, inspiring countless acts of generosity and compassion. Charities report increased donations and volunteerism. Young people write letters sharing how the Pope's choices have challenged them to live with greater purpose and simplicity. Bishops and priests speak of renewed commitment to servant leadership. Even critics of the Church acknowledge the authenticity of Leo XIV's witness. Journalists who once sought scandal now write about his quiet acts of mercy. Religious leaders of other faiths express admiration for his humility and openness. A legacy of humble choices. Pope Leo XIV's personal choices are not grand gestures designed for headlines. They are the daily, sometimes unseen sacrifices that define a life of service. Each decision to live simply, to give generously, to walk among the people, is a testament to the power of humility. His life is a reminder that greatness is not measured by wealth, comfort, or status, but by the willingness to serve others, to embrace sacrifice, and to lead by example. In a world hungry for authenticity, Pope Leo XIV's humble choices shine as a beacon of hope, calling each of us to reconsider what truly matters and to find greatness not in privilege, but in love. Part 4. The true meaning of papal leadership. The papacy for centuries has been both a symbol and a mystery, a role that embodies the hopes, fears, and faith of over 1 billion people. For many, the Pope is a distant figure cloaked in tradition and ceremony, set apart by vestments and rituals. But Pope Leo XIV has quietly, persistently, and unmistakably redefined what it means to lead the Church, not through grandeur, but through the daily witness of humility, solidarity, and service. Servant leadership. A radical vision from the moment of his election, Pope Leo XIV made it clear that he saw his office not as a throne, but as a mission. In his first address, he spoke not of power, but of responsibility. The shepherd must walk with his flock, sometimes ahead, to show the way, sometimes in the midst, to encourage, and sometimes behind, to gather those who stray. This vision of servant leadership is not mere rhetoric. It is woven into the fabric of his daily life, shaping every decision and every public gesture. He has repeatedly called on bishops, priests, and lay leaders to smell like the sheep, to be close to the people, to share their joys and sorrows, and to reject any form of clericalism or privilege. Solidarity with the poor, one of the defining marks of Pope Leo XIV's leadership, is his solidarity with the poor and marginalized. He has said, "The Church must be a home for the poor, a refuge for the outcast, a voice for the voiceless." This is not a slogan, but a lived reality. He visits soup kitchens, shelters, and refugee camps, not as a guest of honor, but as a servant. He sits with the homeless, listens to their stories, and shares meals with them. He has opened Vatican properties to house refugees and has directed church resources to support victims of war, disaster, and poverty. In his encyclicals and public addresses, he challenges Catholics to see Christ in the face of the poor. "If we do not serve the least among us, we do not serve Christ," he has said. This conviction shapes his policies, his budget decisions, and his personal choices. Simplicity as witness Pope. Leo XIV's commitment to simplicity is not just a personal preference, it is a prophetic witness. In a world obsessed with wealth, status, and consumption, his lifestyle is a counter-cultural statement. He lives in a modest apartment, wears plain clothing, and refuses luxury. He has simplified papal ceremonies, eliminated some of the more elaborate trappings of the office, and encouraged church leaders to do the same. He has said the Church must not be a museum of memories, but a living witness to the gospel. Our beauty is not in gold or marble, but in love and service. This simplicity is not dour or joyless. Those who know him describe his laughter, his love of music and art, and his delight in the small pleasures of life. But he insists that these joys are to be shared, not hoarded, and that true happiness comes from giving, not possessing. Teaching by example Pope. Leo XIV's teachings on humility, stewardship, and compassion are not confined to documents or speeches. He teaches by example. When he visits a parish, he insists on meeting the sick, the elderly, and the children. He listens more than he speaks, and he often leaves behind a small handwritten note or a personal blessing. He has abolished certain honorary titles, simplified the papal wardrobe, and encouraged bishops to live among their people. He has said the shepherd should have the smell of the sheep, and the sheep should know the voice of the shepherd. His approach to leadership has inspired a new generation of priests, and lay leaders. Seminaries report an increase in candidates who cite the Pope's example as their inspiration. Young Catholics see in him a model of authenticity and courage. The gospel in action. For Pope Leo XIV's leadership is not about authority, but about service. He often quotes Jesus' words, "Whoever wants to be first must be the servant of all." He has washed the feet of prisoners, immigrants, and people of other faiths during Holy Thursday liturgies, breaking with tradition to emphasize the universality of Christ's love. He has made reconciliation and mercy central themes of his papacy, He has reached out to those estranged from the Church, welcomed those who feel excluded, and called for dialogue across divisions. He has said the Church is not a fortress but a field hospital, open to all who are wounded and seeking healing. His leadership style has sometimes drawn criticism from those who prefer a more traditional hierarchical model, but Pope Leo XIV remains steadfast. The Gospel is not a set of rules, but a way of life. We must embody Christ's love in all we do. A leader among equals, despite his global influence, Pope Leo XIV sees himself as a brother among brothers and sisters. He has said the Pope is not a king but a servant. My authority comes from Christ who washed the feet of his disciples. He has encouraged synodality, a model of church governance that emphasizes listening, dialogue, and shared decision-making. He has convened synods on the family, youth, and the environment, inviting voices from every corner of the world. He listens to women, lay people, and those on the margins, insisting that the Church must be a community where every voice matters. During meetings, he often sits at the same level as others, eschewing the raised dais or throne. He prefers round tables, hierarchical seating. He asks questions, listens to dissent, and seeks consensus. The impact on the world Pope. Leo XIV's leadership has had a profound impact beyond the Church. World leaders, religious figures, and ordinary people have been moved by his humility and courage. He has spoken out on issues of justice, peace, and the environment, calling for a revolution of tenderness in global affairs. His encyclical on care for creation, for example, challenged not only Catholics but all people of goodwill to rethink their relationship to the earth. He has addressed the United Nations, urging world leaders to put the needs of the poor and vulnerable at the center of policy. His visits to conflict zones, his advocacy for refugees, and his calls for dialogue between faiths have earned him respect across religious and political divides. He is seen not as a distant monarch, but as a moral leader who walks the talk. The cost of leadership. Pope Leo XIV is open about the burdens of leadership. He has spoken of the loneliness, the criticism, and the weight of responsibility. Yet he embraces these challenges as part of his vocation. The cross is not easy, he has said, but it is the only way to resurrection. He fasts, prays, and seeks counsel from trusted advisors. He has established a circle of spiritual directors and confesses regularly, believing that a leader must be accountable and humble. He has also made mistakes and admits them publicly. He asks for forgiveness and encourages a culture of transparency and repentance within the Church, inspiring a new generation. Perhaps the greatest legacy of Pope Leo XIV's leadership is the inspiration he has given to a new generation. Young people see in him a leader who is real, approachable, and courageous. They write to him by the thousands, sharing their hopes and struggles. He responds with encouragement, urging them to be builders of bridges, not walls, and to make a mess for the gospel. He challenges them to serve the poor, care for the earth, and live with integrity. His example has sparked movements for social justice, environmental stewardship, and interfaith dialogue. Catholic schools and universities have adopted his teachings as part of their curricula. Parishes organize service projects, prayer vigils, and study groups centered on his encyclicals. The heart of the matter in the end. The true meaning of papal leadership is not found in title ceremonies or even in the walls of the Vatican. It is found in the daily choices to serve, to listen, to love. Pope Leo XIV's life is a living homily, a sermon preached not from a pulpit but from the humble paths of Casa Santa Marta, the soup kitchens of Rome, and the hearts of those he touches. He reminds the world that greatness is not measured by power but by compassion, that leadership is not about being served but about serving, that the Church's mission is not to preserve its own comfort but to bring the light of Christ to the darkest places. Pope Leo XIV's papacy is a call to all Catholic, or not, to rediscover the radical heart of the gospel, humility, solidarity, and love without limits. Part 5. Why this truth matters in a world awash with spectacle, cynicism, and misinformation. The truth about Pope Leo XIV's humble life and servant leadership is more than a curiosity, it is a beacon The reality of his daily choices, his rejection of luxury, and his radical embrace of simplicity mattered deeply not only for Catholics, but for anyone searching for authenticity, hope, and a new vision of what greatness can be. Restoring trust in leadership for decades, trust in institutions, religious, political, social, has been eroding. Scandals, hypocrisy, and the abuse of power have left many feeling alienated and disillusioned. The Church too has faced its share of crisis, with headlines often dominated by controversy rather than compassion. Against this backdrop, the lived example of Pope Leo XIV stands out as a powerful antidote. His transparent lifestyle, his willingness to be held accountable, and his daily acts of humility have begun to restore faith in the possibility of honest servant leadership. When people see a pope who lives simply, who eats with workers, who gives away gifts and refuses privilege, they are reminded that leadership can still be rooted in integrity. His choices challenge the narrative that power inevitably corrupts and invite a new conversation about what it means to lead with conscience and heart. Inspiring Catholics and the world, the impact of Pope Leo XIV's example is felt not just within the walls of the Vatican but across continents and cultures. Catholics who may have felt distant from the Church now see a shepherd who walks among his flock. His humility resonates with the poor, the marginalized, and the young, those who have often felt excluded from the halls of power. Parishes and dioceses around the world report a renewed sense of mission. Priests and bishops cite the Pope's example as inspiration to live more simply, to serve more generously, and to listen more deeply. Lay people too are moved to reconsider their own lives, donating to charity, volunteering, and reaching out to those in need. But the ripple effect goes further. Non-Catholics, people of other faiths, and even those who profess no faith at all, find something compelling in the Pope's witness. His actions speak a universal language that dignity is found in service, that joy is found in giving, and that greatness is measured by love, challenging our notions of success. The story of Pope Leo XIV forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about our own values. In a culture obsessed with wealth, status, and image, his rejection of luxury is a quiet revolution. He reminds us that the trappings of success, expensive clothes, lavish homes, exclusive circles, are not the measure of a life well lived. Instead, he points to another way, a life marked by purpose, connection, and sacrifice. His daily routine, rising before dawn, eating simple meals, walking among the people, invites us to ask, what do I truly need? What am I willing to give? What legacy do I want to leave? For young people, especially bombarded by social media images of extravagance and celebrity, the Pope's example is a counter-cultural call to authenticity. He shows that it is possible to be influential without being ostentatious, to be powerful without being prideful, and to be happy without having everything. Healing the Church and the world, the humility and transparency of Pope Leo XIV have also become a source of healing for the Church. His willingness to admit mistakes, to ask for forgiveness, and to walk with the wounded has opened doors for reconciliation and renewal. Victims of abuse and injustice have found in him a listener and an advocate. He has met with survivors, apologized publicly, and implemented reforms to protect the vulnerable. His leadership has not erased the pain of the past, but it has begun to chart a path toward healing. On a broader scale, his advocacy for the poor, the environment, and peace has united people across divides. He has called for dialogue between faiths, for solidarity with migrants, for stewardship of creation, and for a politics of mercy. In a fractured world, his voice is a reminder that unity is possible not through uniformity, but through compassion, the power of example. Perhaps the greatest reason this truth matters is the power of example. Words can inspire, but actions transform. Pope Leo XIV's daily witness invites each of us to live more intentionally, to serve more generously, and to lead with humility. His life is a living challenge to every leader, parent, teacher, and citizen. What story are you telling with your choices? Are you building walls or bridges? Are you seeking comfort or meaning? Are you using your gifts for yourself or for the good of others? His example reminds us that greatness is not reserved for the famous or the powerful. It is found in the ordinary, in the unseen, in the daily acts of kindness and courage that shape the world from the inside out. A call to all, the truth about Pope Leo XIV is not just a story about a man in white robes. It is a KL to all of us to rediscover the roots of our own humanity. It is an invitation to strip away the illusions of wealth and power and to find joy in service, freedom in simplicity, and strength in humility. It challenges us to look beyond appearances, to see the dignity in every person, the value in every act of love, and the possibility of change in every heart. Whether Catholic or not, whether believer or skeptic, the witness of Pope Leo XIV is a reminder that another way is possible, that the world can be healed not by more luxury, but by more love, that leadership can be redeemed not by more control, but by more compassion, that our lives too can become a testament to the truth that matters most, the lasting legacy. As the years pass, the headlines will fade, the rumors will be forgotten, and the controversies will give way to new debates. But the legacy of Pope Leo XIV's humble leadership will endure not in marble statues or golden thrones, but in the lives of those he has touched. Children who write him letters will remember his replies. The poor who received his coat or his blessing will remember his kindness. The world, if it chooses to remember, will recall a pope who lived not for himself, but for others. And in that memory, there is hope. Hope that each of us, in our own way, can choose humility over pride, service over self, and truth over illusion. Conclusion: in the end, the truth about Pope Leo XIV's life matters because it points us back to what is real. It reminds us that the greatest treasures are not found in palaces but in hearts, that the highest calling is not to rule but to serve, and that the deepest joy is not in what we possess but in what we give away. May his example inspire us all to seek the deeper truth, to live with integrity, and to build a world where humility, compassion, and love are the measure of greatness. Thank you for joining us on this journey to the heart of true leadership. Remember, greatness is not measured by luxury, but by humility, service, and compassion. Stay inspired, seek the deeper truth, and let's build a world where kindness leads the way.